What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Steven Ostentowski here of Mesa Brew, and today we're talking about Jim Harbaugh's contract with the University of Michigan and why it doesn't make sense. So obviously, Harbaugh's in his final year of his contract, getting a lot of attention throughout the college football landscape. Obviously, was made a lot worse with how poorly the 2020 season went for the Wolverines. So what are we going to talk about? I'm breaking this into two parts here just because it's a lengthy discussion. Part one, we're first going to dive into why Harbaugh's contract is an anomaly in the college football landscape today. And then number two, how that affects the program. Obviously, it's negative, but we'll dive into those points there. And then in part two, we're going to talk about what Michigan should have done instead of the situation they're currently in. And then finally, we'll wrap up with what will Michigan actually do. And again, those are opinion-based, but I'll dive into the best speculation we can. So before I dive into part one here, I want to announce a fundraiser I've started with the organization No Kid Hungry. They help provide meals for children and families that need assistance, especially around this holiday season, especially with COVID as well. Lots of challenges for families providing meals for their kids. Kids, a lot of whom relied on school meals throughout the day. So for every like on videos released today through Christmas, I'll donate $1 to that fund. I've donated $100 to get it started with a $2,000 goal. So let's try to get there. I appreciate any and all support to the fundraiser. I'll have a link in the description below if you can please take a look at that, as well as information about the organization No Kid Hungry. But let's try to do some good here. Let's band together. And okay, that's it. Let's dive into the video here. So why is Harbaugh's contract an anomaly? So his contract, like I said, ends in December of 2021. To the layman, you might think, okay, one more season. What's wrong with that, right? You can evaluate the end of the season and go from there. First off, he's the only Power 5 coach in the country today with less than 2 years remaining on his contract. You can verify that with this article from Yahoo Sports. So this isn't something that happens in the current landscape of coaching today. This is just not something that happens. I looked through the existing Big Ten coaches and all of their initial contracts as well as their extensions. The average amount of time between the contract renegotiations was usually 2 to 3 years. None of them exceeded more than 3 years. And this is, again, we're on year 5 of Harbaugh's 6-year contract. So that's an anomaly. There currently isn't another Big Ten coach's contract expiring until 2024. And that's 3 coaches. I'll put a list of the coaches on the screen here. But 3 coaches have their contract expiring in 2024. 2025 has 2 coaches. And then you have 8 coaches whose contract expires either 2026 or 2027. So this is an anomaly, right? This is something where there's a 3-year gap between Harbaugh's expiring contract and the next expiring contract in the Big Ten. That's not a good sign. You might think that, okay, this is weird, but how does it actually affect the program, right? It matters because of recruiting. And, I'll be the first to admit I was shocked at how well Michigan held on to their 2021 class. I had a 10-minute video going over that class. Lots of positives. Sure, there's still negatives, some holes to fill in that class, but check out that video for that whole breakdown. The main thing to think about, though, and how this contract affects recruiting is long-term, okay? How were those relationships with the 2021 class formed? When were they formed, right? That's back in 2019, 2018. Donovan Edwards himself was offered back in April of 2018, right? Sure, there's evaluations going on right now from the staff, but a lot of those relationships are really formed years ahead of time. So it takes a lot of that time to really forge those relationships with those coaches, with the assistant coaches, with the program overall. So yes, even though the 2021 class was really solid, and the staff deserves credit for it, they absolutely do. That's despite this contract situation, right? Something that was an obstacle to get through for that 2021 class. But think about the 2023 guys, right? Even some of the 2022 guys. How am I, if I'm one of those recruits, how am I getting excited about Michigan when their head coach's contract expires 2 years before I even get there, right? That head coach determines the assistant coaches I'm talking to. He determines that. And those sort of positions that I'll be talking to, those guys recruiting me, I don't even know if they're going to be there because of the lack of certainty on that head coach's contract. So sure, maybe the contract isn't at the top of their list of considerations, but it has to be a consideration, right? You need to know who's going to be coaching you. So to have a guy, if I'm a 2023 guy, it's hard to see my future at that program when the program has even figured out their own future past 2021, right? So that's just something that I feel like has to be in the back of their mind. And really the biggest discouragement for me is the dismissive nature of this contract in relation to negative recruiting. Okay, so Warde Manuel was asked about how negative recruiting would impact the class, specifically 2021. And overall, he responded, and I'll put the quote here. He said, "You know what's not unique in college athletics? Negative recruiting. Negative recruiting occurs all the time." And of course, he's not wrong, right? But there's a huge difference between avoidable negative recruiting and non-avoidable negative recruiting. So I'll put those categories up on the screen. Non-avoidable current negative recruiting could be about how a certain rumor or about how the past season went poorly or the direction of a program, right? Those are things that are currently unavoidable for the Michigan program. Yes, it was a bad season. You could argue that was avoidable if you just play better, right? But right now, in December, Michigan season is effectively over. You cannot currently avoid that bad recruiting. It's going to happen, right? Other teams can and probably should bring that up because Michigan's not headed in the right direction. There's nothing Michigan can do right now to avoid that, right? They can't play another game really. So that's the unavoidable just in the current status right now. So the avoidable current negative recruiting is the contract, right? That is something Michigan can change right now. You can end all of that at the time of this recording, announce the extension. That cuts out a ton of negative recruiting right away. Maybe Michigan should not be an anomaly in the Power 5 in relation to their head coach's contract and make a decision here. And I bet Michigan's situation will improve. So that's it for part 1. Part 2 will be coming soon. And again, I'll answer the questions: what should Michigan have done to avoid this situation they're currently in? And then what Michigan likely will do in the weeks coming up as a result of this. So again, help out for the fundraiser for No Kid Hungry. Link in the description. Every like on the video until Christmas, this video and future videos until Christmas, I'll donate $1 for each of those likes. If you can, please consider donating as well. $2,000 is the goal, so let's try to get there. Besides that, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments your thoughts about this. But beyond that, stay safe out there. As always, go blue.